One of the things we keyed in on the bracket, the new sort of brackets descriptions, is the idea of an expected turn to play the game until. And this got us thinking about the conflict between what Commander is attempting to do and what Magic systems actually facilitate.
Distraction makers.
So first, I think we should start off by, I guess, sort of giving the best case we can describe for why you would want to create sort of a speed limit or like a number of turns for players to play to.
It seems like the prevailing goal of most of these brackets is trying to maintain that in a casual environment, players get to do their thing. And so a hard sort of a limit, a turn timer, is something that creates that window of opportunity for players to be able to do their thing before someone can eventually win the game and wrap it up.
In a lot of ways, the commander panel is attempting to facilitate casual play in an inherently competitive system. So we're going to get into like why Magic systems are inherently competitive a little bit later, but I think that there's a paradox that they are running into while attempting to sort of like facilitate casual play. And it comes down to the more that you attempt to put guardrails on or to define casual play, the more exclusionary it becomes.
And this is something that is ironic because I think oftentimes what we hear this in comments on our videos all the time, we hear this argument all over the place, which is that Commander is fundamentally a casual format. And the issue with stating that is that if it were such a casual format, then why would they need these guidelines?
Why do you even need the guide? Yeah.
Because there's many games that there's not an argument over whether it's a casual game or not. It is understood by most people, if not all people, that this is a casual game.
Shoots and Ladders.
Shoots and Ladders is a very casual game. That's probably the most extreme example of a casual game.
I was just thinking the most extreme.
No, I think that's a good example of that. But, and I think that what often happens is that instead of blaming the system of Commander, players end up blaming the behavior of other players. Yeah. The thing is that you can't account for the different player behaviors, right? The way that someone can win the game is only a possibility because of the system that is given to that player. Meaning that if you don't like how someone won, then that's the system's fault, never the player's fault.
Yeah. 100%. And so the design of any system is choosing sort of like what kind of outcome that you want the system to create. Like what experience is this system facilitating? And it starts with that outcome, right? It starts with what is the end point that players end on, and then the rest of the system is sort of built on that as sort of the end of the road, I guess. Okay, so let's first talk about what Magic systems are designed to do. And Magic systems are designed to essentially facilitate an argument, right? And I realize, like, we are going back and forth about whether or not this is the right way to describe this, but to me, this is the best way that I can describe it. So if you want to change it when I pass it over to you, you can do that.
How about you describe it how you would describe it, and then I'm going to dumb it way down.
Sure. It's a little heady. Okay, so the way that I see Magic systems is that they are designed to facilitate an argument between two players. Each of those players come to the table with their version of the argument, which is, I think my deck plus my skill equals I win. And the other player comes to the table and says, I think my deck plus my skill equals I win. And then Magic systems facilitate that argument to see who is correct.
You're talking in a 1v1 environment, primarily.
But this also goes to 4-player, right? It's that because Magic systems end on a singular winner, and that ends the game. That is what it is designed to do. It is designed to facilitate who has brought the thing that achieves that goal the best to the table. Right. And Commander does not change that goal. That specific goal is always part of the equation. The game ends when one player wins, and you do so through what your opponent is doing because you must interact with them right through their creatures. They decide how you interact with them, whether they're going to block or not, and you attack their life total.
Now, this might kind of conflict with what I think a lot of people end up thinking Commander is, right? Or their mindset about Commander, which is that, well, I don't care if I win, right? I'm not going into this for winning, and I think if someone is they should instead care more about fun. And the problem with that is that systems of games are not designed to determine fun. And this is we've had a crusade on the word fun for a long time, and the issue is that like fun will exist, right? Fun is something that is going to happen, but it's too subjective and too broad of a statement. So instead, you ideally want to have a particular outcome or intended experience that your game is fulfilling, and then make sure that you have play styles that are aligned with that intended experience.
Different interpretations of fun.
Yes,
this is why I think Magic has done such a good job with their psychographics and saying like, okay, these are player profiles that we have established and different ways of having fun. And fun, again in quotes, right? Is that like fun, Magic systems do not inherently contain fun. You can win the game and not have fun. You can lose the game and not have fun. What is fun, right? It is just the feeling at the end, the feeling of satisfaction at the end of the game for whatever reason.
I think you get that feeling during it, but it's so subjective, it's so evocative depending on your play style, right? Is playing some sort of a demure mid-range deck where you're going and discarding your opponent's cards fun to you? Is that fun to your opponent?
Hell yeah, that's fun.
Right. I've played it and I think it's fun. I don't know if my opponent thinks it's fun, but I've also played against those type of decks, and I've also felt like that's enjoyable, right? I've liked that.
There's a lesson to learn in enjoying your opponent beating the crap out of you.
Yeah.
Like just losing in the most extreme way. Like there is a lesson to learn in that sometimes that's going to happen. And sometimes you have to just learn that like, that's fine. And maybe next time you get to do that, right? Like, or I'm going to invest in this game and understanding the game better to get to the point where I get to do that. I get to have that feeling of, man, I really like kicked their ass, right?
Yeah. And I think that this kind of touches on something that I believe with games. I still can't for the life of me remember where this quote was from, but it's that you stop having fun with games when you stop learning. And like, it's not about you playing some sort of edutainment, jumpstart first grade game or something, right? Like it's about that, yeah, you got the crap beaten out of you by someone online, but now you can go, well, what did they do? How did they do that? Like, how can I do that? Or how can I beat that next time? Yeah. And I think that, like, really, if there's any sort of connective tissue between all the different sort of quote unquote fun experiences of 1v1 Magic in particular, I think all of them generally have to do with interaction. And I think that is kind of the through line that Wizards looks for as well, because the most problematic types of decks that have usually had to be fixed is either they're too strong and there's too much of like a singular meta, or it's because there's a completely non-interactive experience.
You're right. And I think it's more agency than it is necessarily interaction, right? Like the ability for you to feel like you even had a chance. Sure. And when like things get too homogenous into like a singular strategy that is ensuring that other players don't feel like they even have a chance of winning, yes, that's a problem. And I think that like you can create a design goal within Magic systems of from a competitive play perspective of we want 5 to 8 decks that are viable at the highest levels of the format, and that's a very clear, precise goal. It's much more difficult for you to say we want to facilitate fun in the game.
Yeah. And I think at this point, it's like, unless you can define what fun is, right? Like if I feel like interaction is important, you're saying agency is important. Like those are the kind of key things that you want to make sure, like, okay, if players are doing this, that is our intended experience. You don't have to worry. Like, yes, if you were making a game from the ground up, what we'd probably be doing is we'd be sitting in watching players play and going, okay, is this what we want them to do? And are players enjoying doing the thing we want them to do? And if that lines up, then great. Perfect.
So let's come back to how we think the commander panel is defining fun, right? And I don't think they're being prescriptive of what fun is. I think it's interesting because the turn limit thing, I think, is getting close to something that's very important, which is the idea that players want to do the thing. We're not going to prescribe to them what the thing is, right? Which I will say that the Game Changers do a little bit. But we're not going to say, this is the thing that you should be doing, and this is how you should be doing it. We're going to say, this is the number of turns that you have to do whatever the thing is that you think it should be.
They do technically, they're not defining what it is, but they're defining what it's not. And it's not 2-card combos. So they are limiting certain things.
You're right. They are prescribing a little bit. I think that part of the paradox here is that Commander is built on top of systems that are not designed to do what they're trying to do with it. And so this idea that you're saying like, okay, we're going to give you a window of time to do the thing that you want to do. So whatever that is, we're not going to be prescriptive. We're going to be a little prescriptive because we're going to get rid of some of these negative play patterns that like inherently make it so it's really difficult for other players to do a thing. Here's your window of time to do the thing, but we're not going to be able to sort of guarantee that you will be able to do the thing because Magic systems say if that they're inherently adversarial, meaning that if one player does the thing and their thing wins the game is over and you don't get to do your thing. It's sort of like zero sum in that way. And I think that maybe one of the biggest missteps I think that Commander did, if the goal at the beginning was to facilitate the most fun possible, and if fun is defined as doing the thing, then what they could have done is change the way that the game ends. And instead of your life total, like individual life totals going to 0 from 20, and then once yours is at 0, you're out and you definitely don't get to do your thing. Instead, it goes the other direction. And we move towards the goal rather than taking away the goal from someone else, basically.
This is something that we kind of complimented Lorcana on in one of our, very early videos that we recorded, where we said that, it's better facilitated for free-for-all play, especially casual free-for-all play, because it allows you to instead let everyone else sort of do their thing and build up, as opposed to having this sort of, single target elimination as you go and take people out.
It's basically flipping the system around and saying, like, me doing my thing removes only me from the game, right? I have crossed the finish line, but that does not stop anyone else from continuing the race.
Right, and you're suggesting that like someone wins, they're recognized as first place essentially, but then the game can continue.
Yeah, and in this instance, okay, so like let's just say instead of your creatures attacking the other players and taking their life points from 20 to 0, instead you're counting up from 0 to 20 or whatever, 40 in Commander, whatever. So you're counting up to 40. So every time you attack with a creature, you're counting up. And Magic systems, again, aren't designed for this, right? But they could be, but they're not. So let's say you attack with your creatures, you're counting up to 40. The first person to hit 40, they win their first place. The game continues. Who's second place? Who's third place? Who's fourth place? So theoretically, in this type of a structure, 3 of the 4 of the people at the table will always be able to do their thing, instead of 1 out of 4 players being able to do the thing.
And I think that it's funny because I already know, as you're explaining that, we're going to get a lot of people in the comments that are going to say, that sounds terrible. And probably the biggest complaint that people would have about a system like that is that it sounds very non-interactable, right? A lack of interaction. And this is, I think that sort of almost proves our point of how you can't define this casual experience, right? Because you're going to have people that will say, well, that sounds boring because there's no interaction. But there's also lots of people that don't like to play with interaction because they want to do their thing. So they feel like interaction is, in a lot of cases, kind of an unfair feeling. And so, like, I think it shows you can't really win. You can't have it be for everybody, right? Instead, you have to define what that intended experience is. And if it is that you have a particular plan, I want to play a lot of dragons, I want to play this 2-card combo, I want to make a lot of artifacts and blow them up and kill everyone, whatever it is, right? Like, if you need to create a system that is going to allow players to do their thing and build up to that. If that's the intended goal, if that's the intended experience.
Right, and if the system's not zero sum, then theoretically, you could even build a system in which all the players at the table get to ensure that they're able to do their thing. Maybe it's not a race. Maybe we don't have first, second, third, fourth place. Maybe it's just we have completed the game, right? All 4 of us have done the thing. We have all completed the game. There is no one individual winner. We've all won. We all did the thing. We all witnessed each other do the thing.
And this isn't like us actually prescribing this as like this would fix Commander. This is purely an example of how you can make a slight change to the system that then will adjust how players interact with it.
So I guess the first question I have is, given the constraints of the system that is Commander, that's built on top of Magic, is the turn limit the best that they can do given the circumstances they're in?
I don't envy the position they're in, but I also feel like what I mean, kind of we're getting at somewhat in this video and a lot of our videos, is that what they're dealing with is kind of a paradox. Like, no matter what they end up doing, it's never going to cleanly define it, right? It's a fool's errand, right? But yeah, it's just no matter what you try to do, you're never going to actually cleanly have these nice, solid definitions, right? You can have a better understanding of those definitions if you can define it on the high end, right? And that's a whole other discussion as far as like using competitive games as the metric, because it's a clearly definable space, as opposed to this casual where unless you're designing a game from the ground up, you can't take these existing systems of a game and rewire them, because there's so many cards that you're just not going to be able to account for, and so many different interactions that were intended for a completely different system. Meaning, like, we're kind of stuck with what we've got here. So I don't know. I don't know if turns is the best thing. I don't know if having brackets and any definitions is the best thing.
I think that given the circumstances, a turn estimator is okay, right? I think it's like you're working with the cobbled together system that you have that's built on top of the system that is not it's just not designed to do this thing that players are asking it to do. I do think that there is a weird paradox, like there's a weird tension at the center of Commander that is, this system is not built for this, but we're pushing it to do it. We are contorting it into a new shape, and the sort of scaffolding, the structure that was there before is still there, but there's a tension in what we are trying to do with that structure now, and part of that is we get 30,000 game pieces to attempt to do that with, and without those 30,000 game pieces, I don't think Commander works at all.
I mean, I think that we've talked about why Commander got to the point that it's at, and it's probably more than likely that there was a lot of enfranchised players or players, mildly or somewhat interested in Magic, but couldn't keep up with the race of Standard and the race of new cards coming out.
And also there's the question of like, hey, there's all these extra cards that really kind of don't feel like they have a purpose. What's a purpose for those cards?
Right. So you're ending up being able to look at that history of cards and maybe past collections and be able to find a new context and a new format to go and play those cards in without having to continuously get all of the newest things. So I do think that that's really enticing. Yeah. But I think I think we had a video on it recently that the greatest strength of Commander is its politics. It's also its greatest weakness. And I think that politics is that thing that allows it to sort of divulge into this casual play. I think the tension that we feel from that, though, is that politics is the real game at play, and that people feel that the game itself is the real game. And I think this is a huge issue with, honestly, actually just not having as much information out there on the subject of free-for-all competitive games. We clearly can define 1v1 games to the point that we're having tons of TCGs coming out that are completely copying the formulas of past TCGs and how they've been generated, and creating these new structures because they know this is how this works. It's been done before. We're not seeing nearly as many free-for-all games trying to do this and move towards like a competitively viable option. And I think it's because it's really hard to try and balance around. So instead, what we are seeing is we're seeing new competitive games that are coming out that are trying to curb some of these politics that are preventing it from moving too deep into this casual place, right? That's where we're getting stuff like Lorcana that has a system closer to what we're talking about. That's why we're having something like Riftbound, which is not quite what we're talking about, but similar. You're counting up, but the interaction point is within the territories in the center, so you're not going through players. So people are learning and designing systems that better facilitate free-for-all now. But I still feel that what most people really enjoy about this game is the, like you said, the amount of cards and the politics.
If we morph the system into being one that is better at facilitating players to be able to do their thing, because that's what we have defined as fun. We let the players decide what the thing is, obviously, and what is fun to them. But if we morph the system into one in which the majority of players get to do the thing in any given game, that does inherently take away some of that tension of, you doing the thing stops me from being able to do my thing. So I want to point you in a different direction, right? There's no like pointing in a different direction anymore because the only thing that is directional is that we move up, not through, right? And so we lose some of that the politicking ability that happens in Commander because there's no reason to point anybody in any given direction anymore.
Right, which in a way actually makes it less. It's funny because like by removing the politics, it makes it less casual, but it's leaning towards what casual players seem to be wanting to do with the game of Magic.
If the thing is to
do the thing.
To do the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that really all we're touching on is that the brackets are kind of an impossible task as long as there isn't a clearly defined intended experience that players can agree upon.
I think there's also, this one's a little different, but I do think that there's a bit of a smokescreen or something in terms of like I can blame other players for me not achieving. Yeah. And Magic has kind of always had some of that. Like there's always a way to like blame the randomness of your deck. Oh, if I just had one more turn. Oh, this, that. If I would have drawn this card, I would have won, that kind of stuff. And that's all like a coping mechanism, I guess, in terms of like, especially in competitive play, in terms of like, I couldn't do the thing, therefore I can blame something else. And Commander gives even another layer of that, which is that like, okay, if I wasn't able to do the thing, well, that's because your deck's too good. Yeah. Because we're not playing for who has the best deck. We're playing to just have fun and do the thing.
It's because you had Ristic Study.
It's because you had Ristic Study. Whatever. It's because you're not following the arbitrary rules that I have decided are what define this as a casual game. It's weird because like you're sort of almost like removing that smoke screen too. Is you're saying like, well, if we move towards first, second, third, fourth place or whatever, then you're doing the thing is not stopping me from doing the thing. So I must then face with the fact that like, well, of the four people at the table, I was the fourth player. It took me the longest, or I'm the one who didn't get to do the thing instead of like, we have one winner and three people that didn't get to do the thing. Which is different. It's a different dynamic.
Well, and I think that when you have that dynamic, you don't allow players to understand like where their deck and their skill level really is. And I think right now that's something that Commander doesn't really have a great way of determining, right? People don't know, the term we keep using is people don't know the ceiling. Like, so you don't really know what skill level or what your power level of your deck really is, and the brackets aren't going to narrow that down by any means. And so when your deck could win by turn 3 on occasion, right, that sounds like that's powerful, but if that is pretty like non-deterministic, like you don't know, or it's like very rare that that's going to be an opportunity, when there's a deck that can consistently win by turn 4 or 5, like that's a stronger deck, but you won't really see that. And you won't see how weak your deck is in comparison unless you play out a full game, right? Yeah. But you won't. I guess it also depends because there's always going to be that argument of, well, that's not that you're playing too sweaty, being too competitive.
I guess the sort of last thing I'll say on the turns note is that I do think that Wizards of the Coast designs different power levels of formats to end on particular turns, right? Or on average, you're going to get to X number of turns. Yeah. And the more powerful the format, the lower that number is. So I do see a correlation between power level of what is happening in the game and sort of putting a speed limit on the number of turns. It's weird that it is a sort of prescription rather than a facilitation of the system. Right. But maybe that's just the best they can do.
It's all you can do when you have such a large card pool, right? Like the closest format that has a similar level of cards is Legacy, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. And Legacy ends on turns 2 to 3.
I mean, it could, turn 1.
Turn 1.
Oops, all spells
right.
is done, yeah.
And so, like, if that's the closest thing that you could compare it to, obviously it's singleton, but we've talked plenty of times about how it's still insanely consistent, and CEDH games can end on turn 1 as well. Sure. So we've seen that Commander played to its fullest is a comparable level of turns equal to something like Legacy. So in order to prevent that, you'd have to have some sort of significant clipping, cutting down on cards available in order to make sure that you're not allowing these ultra powerful cards that can get you there consistently.
So ultimately, I do think that the sort of turn speed limit is good. I think it might be the best that they can do given the circumstances. Yeah. Again, it is a way that I think Wizards of the Coast sets a target for power levels and formats. So, ideally you're giving players room to do the thing, but you're not guaranteeing it within the system. So you're still going to have sort of, I think, outcomes that players perceive as negative, but maybe you can kind of get on the same page now about how much time, the window of time you will have before the game comes to an end.
If you enjoyed listening to us talk about the brackets and the turn timers and all that sort of stuff, please feel free to give us a little like and a subscribe, maybe a comment down below.
If you want to continue the conversation, you can join our Discord. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye. I designed my decks to be able to win by turn 6, and people still get upset.
Do you?
Yeah, usually.
I designed my decks to make sure the game lasts until turn 25.
Oh, that's cool.
We didn't put a ceiling on the number of turns. We just put a floor.
You're right. So. That's what they should have done. The next update's going to see and can't last any longer than turn 20.